So what do we want in a solution? First of all, we need a solution that is politically acceptable. And when I mean politically acceptable, I don't mean that it passes with a 61 to 59 majority in the Knesset, that it has support on both on the left and on the right. From experience, the Oslo agreements came through with a very small majority, and that's not good. So it has to be politically acceptable. It should be agreeable to the Palestinians, although I'd say that it could conceivably be implementable unilaterally, because if the Palestinians won't agree to it, and there's a chance, because Palestinians are unlikely to break ranks. Okay, so as long as the Palestinian leadership has not agreed to something, nobody will step forward and say, "Oh, that sounds actually quite reasonable." So we should be in a position to implement it unilaterally, with it being understood that there would be no major resistance on the side of the Palestinians, because it's something positive. It would give the Palestinians political and economical benefits right away. Today, the Palestinians are very disadvantaged. Politically, they are disadvantaged, obviously, but economically as well. Their GDP is about 1/10 of even less than 1/10 of Israel's GDP. We have a GDP of around $50,000 per capita per year. And they have one around 3,000, 4,000 in the West Bank, and in Gaza it's even less. So that's a difference which is not sustainable, and has to be overcome in the framework of any solution. It should be well received by the world powers. Okay, they should be able to see the future, a reasonable future in it, and international organizations as well. Should also be accepted by neighboring countries, so by Jordan in particular, and Egypt, and also the Gulf countries. It should keep Israel secure. That's a pretty basic requirement, especially after what happened. So we feel even more threatened by our surroundings. It should be flexible, okay, meaning that it should be able to deal with changes coming along. It should be simple to withdraw from it, meaning that if we won't be able to go through, and going back, there's no major harm is done. And it should also obviously adhere to international law, except maybe for a period of transient period or something like that. So that's a pretty big, it's a lot of requirements, but actually we think that the federation we're proposing will actually be able to meet it. So what we're proposing is a federation, a federal system, which is similar in the basic construct to about 30 other federations all over the world. 40% of the world population lives in federation. Among the most successful countries, the United States, Brazil, Germany, Austria, Australia, are federations. So there's a lot of places where you can look at what they have and decide what we want. And there's also things to say what we don't want. So there's a lot of samples. So we're proposing to split Israel between the Jordan River and the sea, not including the Gaza Strip. And I'll tell you later why. Actually, now pretty much everybody knows, but even before, into 30 cantons. Okay, the area of Eretz Israel, of Palestine, split into 30 cantons. 20 of them Jewish majority, 10 of them Palestinian majority. That ratio between 20 to 10 or 2 to 1 would represent basically the demography. In the area between the Jordan River and the sea, not including Gaza, it would be about 65% Jewish, 35% Palestinian, non-Jewish. So that would also be expressed in the ratio of the cantons. There would be a joint constitution a joint constitution, meaning a federal constitution, liberal federal constitution, we would write together with the Palestinians. Israel was supposed to write a constitution when the state was founded. In the Declaration of Independence, it says specifically that we should have written the constitution already quite many years ago. We never came around to it. A constitution with the Palestinians would probably be an easier task than writing one for Jews only, because the tasks are much more clear. It's much more simple to defend one side against the other, or protect one side against the other from the other. So it wouldn't be such a difficult task. There are lots of constitutions to copy from. Part of the change in the governmental system, there would be a second house in the Knesset, an upper house, which would represent the cantons. Each canton would, similar to the United States Senate, would have 2 representatives and send them to the Knesset. So there would be 60 upper house members, in addition to the 120 lower house, which would be a safety system, which would prevent a change to the system of government when the demography changes. I think the biggest concern for Jews in any kind of arrangement is that Arabs may gain majority, okay, and therefore the power in a democratic country. And we're obviously talking about a little liberal democracy, if I didn't mention it before. So with 2 houses and a double majority clause, which would mean that in order to make changes to the governmental system or to the constitution, you need a majority both in the lower house, which reflects the demography, and in the upper house, which reflects the cantons. That would mean in order to change the power from Jewish majority power to Palestinian majority, the Palestinians would have to have the majority of the population. They have to vote for one party, and they would have to change the majority status of 6 cantons from Jewish majority to Palestinian majority. Now, that technically that would be possible because everybody can move anywhere in the country, but that's not going to happen. So we're pretty safe on that account. The state would be a civil state. It the nationality would be Israeli. Everybody would keep his ethnic, religious nationality, and in addition, he would get Israeli nationality, which would be also citizenship at the same time. And there we would unite citizenship and nationality, as opposed to what the situation is like now. We would maintain the Israeli flag and the symbols of Israel, and we would run a federation in that way, with the IDF being a federal army and local security forces in the cantons. Implementation would be gradual, probably approximately, the best way I can think about it is maybe 3 cantons at a time, 2 Jewish majority and 1 Palestinian majority, and it would go over quite a long period. When I gave a presentation to a Swiss audience, they asked me at the end of the presentation how long I think it would take until this whole thing goes over, and I said, well, 10 years or so. So they laughed at me and said it's going to take about 50 years. Okay, so I think they have some experience with the federal system, and it's actually not necessarily a bad thing that it would take a long time. And looking at the situation, the way it's developing now, it appears that the longer is maybe even better, as long as everybody understands that something good is happening at the end. The refugee issue would be addressed in multiple ways. All the ones which are being considered now in the 2-state solution. Okay, the restitution. Some refugees are allowed to return to Israel, and others into third countries. But the concept we're proposing is a long-term to normalize immigration procedures, meaning long-term anybody who has roots in the area can apply for citizenship or for immigration, and it would be initially it would be regulated along quotas. The quotas, with the aim of the quotas to maintain the demographic status more or less. In actual fact, the quotas would never limit anybody from immigrating, because the way we look at it, it's just important to make it possible. In actual fact, not so many people are going to immigrate as everybody is afraid of or hopes for, depending on where you are. So that's the general concept. The support, we have some support, more support on the center left. On the right, we don't have any support among the population. Among the leadership of the right, there is some support. Some former Knesset members are supportive, and some of in the municipalities in the West Bank are supportive. On the left and left center, the population is generally supportive in significant numbers. 20-25% of those on the left wing would be supportive such a plan. But we haven't done anything substantial in order to advance it. So we didn't have major campaigns. So based on what we think, it should be possible to convince a lot of people, although what has happened now in Gaza has obviously changed many of the premises, and we have to see how the outcome, where it'll lead us. Okay, that's about the baseline. Ready for questions.